You're listening to the Untitled Car Show in partnership with RightFootDown.com. Visit Right Foot Down for your daily automotive fix. If you enjoyed today's program, please tell a friend. It's the best way to support this show. If you want to visit the archives, go to YouTube and search for Untitled Car Show. That'll bring you to the archived episodes. If you want to follow the show, just search for Untitled Car Show on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. You can always send an email to the show at untitledcarshow@rightfootdown.com. We're so glad you decided to spend the next hour or so with us. Without further ado, let's get into today's program. Today on the Untitled Car Show, we have another bi-weekly call-in episode. We have Jacob, who's been on the show before. He's Opposite Lock's Residence Toyota guy. And then we have Andrew, a.k.a. Monkey Puzzle, but not spelled the way you think monkey should be spelled a slightly different way for some reason. So, thank you, gentlemen, both for joining me this evening. How are you both doing?
Doing well.
Doing swell.
Well,
swell and well.
I'm glad to hear it. I was thinking about this, a topic I kind of wanted to touch on a bit before we got going too far into this. Spending a lot of time recently, like browsing around on Craigslist looking at stuff, and I was wondering if you had a bad Craigslist story. Jacob, I might have asked you this already, actually. Have I?
I don't think so.
Okay. So it goes for both of you. We'll give Andrew a little bit of time to think here. So we'll go in with Jacob, and we'll get you, since you're the veteran here on the program, to tell us your weirdest Craigslist story.
Veteran's a very loose term in this case.
Yeah, exactly. Relative term is the way I look at it.
So let's see, weirdest Craigslist.
I mean, I don't know. I've had nothing but good, interactions on Craigslist. I've had some weird people via emails, like, who refuse to budge on super crappy cars. Like, I got a Volvo 242, and I refuse to go less than $2,000, even though it doesn't have an engine in it. Like, I've had a couple of those. Like, well, I just want the shell of a car, and that's all you have. I'll give you $500. No, I know what I got. It's worth $2,000. You're a crazy person. Like, no one's ever going to give you $2,000 for it. I've had a lot of those interactions. I've never had a really weird interaction while I'm on the way or when I get there. I did once get when I bought this 740, I was taken out into the middle of a field to kind of test it out, which was a little disconcerting. I had a brief moment of, is this the place where I'm going to die? But I also have a concealed carry permit, so it's like, maybe this guy doesn't know who he's messing with here. So ended up being perfectly fine. He just wanted to show me you can drift a 740, which I guess is the thing.
That's a big baby to drift around.
It goes surprisingly well, though. It has locker. I didn't realize it had a locker. He showed me then. I didn't quite believe him, and then when I started ripping the thing apart, it actually has a rear differential that locks, which is crazy to me. So,
wow.
Yeah, I guess because Swedish and snow, maybe? Who knows? I don't know. Have you had a weird interaction on Craigslist or selling anything on the internet or buying anything on the internet?
Let's see. I think the weirdest would probably be selling wheels and tires. You get some interesting individuals that come to buy tires or wheels that are not worth anything, and then they'll pay you way too much for them, and you're going, why didn't you offer me less? Literally has a quarter inch or not even quarter inch, but has a quarter tread wear, and you're going to pay me $150 for these? Okay, sure, I'll take that.
We have a woodpecker on the program. I'm just going
to... Sorry.
One
of those folks who like some mechanical keyboard, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So the wheels are weird, because I had a guy who came, inspected my wheels, and said, I want those. And I said, could I throw them in your car for you? Could we check and make sure they fit? Stuff like that. Because I don't want anyone coming back and saying these are terrible. And so I went out to his car, and he had 4 mismatched wheels. Not mismatched tires, wheels. And he's like, no, I'm good. And then drove off into the sunset. Just, okay. All right, buddy. Have fun with that.
Either he's planning some sort of weird sexual dalliance with those tires, or he's working on his own Michelin Man costume, because neither one of those makes... Like, mismatched wheels, on how? Like, different size, different rim size? I mean, that just seems like crazy talk to me.
One looked like stock, one looked like a Steely, and one looked like an aftermarket chrome, and then a fourth random, just like he'd gone to the junkyard and been like, I need 4 wheels. Oh, look, these are 4 wheels. I'll put them on my car.
I think the worst thing that people do commonly is put car tires on SUVs or larger vehicles.
Yeah. They don't understand that they need the tire specifically for an SUV because of the load rating and everything, and they end up blowing their tires up. More or less.
It also looks really funny because you're like, those tires do not fit on that vehicle, and there's just like a huge gap between the tire and the rim, and you're like, and the wheel well, and you're like, that does not seem right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so I was playing a game of Bigger and Better for a little while, trying to trade up my wheels. So I traded some aftermarket ones for some Subaru ones, and then I traded for some different Subaru ones, and then I painted my wheels, and I offered them up for trade again, and I ended up trading my Impreza wheels for a guy's Forester wheels, which looked awesome on my Impreza, because, they were big, fat, and meaty, but they looked, my Imprezas looked ridiculous. Basically an SUV with tiny, tiny, low-profile tires. Yeah, people don't know. They don't have a clue.
Mm-hmm. It's, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of giant rims unless they kind of serve a purpose. I don't know. I want to say I'm doing 3 things at once again, which is not good. I don't know if it's a good idea. I mean, which would you rather see? Would you rather see car tires on an SUV or SUV rims on a car?
Well, SUV wheels on a car is at least overbuilt.
This is true.
You're just waiting for the guy with the SUV with the car tires. It's just going to explode while he's in the lane next to you.
I think we call that a donk, right?
Right.
It's Jayhawk Jake, are you there? Jake? No? All right. Something's weird going on with all this stuff today. I don't know exactly what's going on, but we should have. It says he's here, but he's not here. Whatever. I don't know. I mean, the internet's been kind of this wonderful, weird place for car enthusiasts. I mean, do either of you even buy car parts in person anymore, or is it all just online shopping with both of you?
Online or Craigslist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I
tend to buy used, so
yeah.
No, I don't go to a place.
It's easy for me because I just tell my dad, hey, I need this part, and he goes onto his vendor websites because my parents own an automotive repair shop and fix Lexus, Toyota, and I just tell him, hey, I need this part, and then it gets ordered and does not get put on for 3 or 4 months because he's too busy doing his own stuff.
I have a warranty, so I just don't buy it.
Yeah, I've got brake shims that have been sitting in the shop since December, put on my car, and they're still not on. I don't even know if they'll get on this week, and I'm home the entire week.
I mean, you're partly to blame for that. Come on now, you could get out there and do it yourself if you wanted to.
Well, part of it's because I'm usually in Knoxville and the shop is in Nashville, so it's 2.5 hours, and I'll be here for a Saturday and a Sunday, and then I'm gone.
Mm. Yeah. It sounds like Jayhawk Jake has joined us for the evening. Are you there? Or
yes, are you hearing me?
I am hearing you now. Okay, I thought I heard you chime in. Now I'm hearing you well. Yeah, we're talking a bit about weird stories from Craigslist. Is kind of like the first conversation here. Whether it was just the way people interact via email, or if you've had any sort of weird interactions when you finally meet the person face to face, like someone having 4 mismatched tires, for example, or 4 mismatched wheels, for example, when they're buying tires.
I haven't used Craigslist a lot myself. I I'm a bit leery of the whole thing. I think it's an odd situation we're in as a society where we don't trust anybody with anything, but we use Uber and Lyft and Airbnb and meet random people on Craigslist to do deals. But about the only good Craigslist story I have is I bought a CRX on Craigslist was it a year ago, 2 years ago. And I had it for a while, and I eventually had a friend sell it for me, and about 3 weeks ago, he sent me a link that somebody was reselling it with a blown motor. So I don't really know what happened there, but it's kind of interesting to see a car you once owned in a worse state than you left it.
I have seen my Subaru pop up a couple of times in much worse state. It's just sad.
How many vaporizers were in the picture?
More.
What did Subaru owners do before the vaporizer? I mean, did they just like go around with longing for something to put in their mouth? I mean, come on now, like
it was just more Monster Energy drinks than they have now.
That makes sense. Yeah, I will say the cup holder in every Subaru I've ever been in does seem to be the perfect size and depth for a Monster Energy drink. So they appear to know their audience. So, like the Fiesta has like a little itty bitty cup holder for like a little Red Bull in it. The Subarus have always been deep and like the perfect size for like one of those giant Monster Energy drinks. So they must know who they're talking about or who's buying their cars. Like that. They weren't the ones who did that dog in the back concept recently, were they? Anyone know?
That was
what I'm
Nissan.
about? Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think cup holders are severely underrated. The aforementioned CRX had no cup holders, and that was an experience.
Yeah. Okay, how tall are you? I have to know this because I've tried getting in one of those cars before, and it didn't work well for me.
I'm 5'8". I'm the perfect height to fit into any car because I'm never too short and I'm never too tall.
I hate you so much. Every year when I go to the auto shows, it turns into what can't Ike fit into this year, and it's a lot of Toyota shit for some reason. Like they don't build cars for anyone over 6 foot. It seems the only car we ever
interesting.
Yeah, the only car I ever really seemed to fit in well that Toyota makes is the Prius, which pisses me off. It's like if I had to get a Toyota, I'd have to get a Prius just because it's the only car I actually fit in. Have I sat in what?
Have you sat in the back of a brand new Tundra?
I have not been in the back of a Tundra, no.
So my dad has a 2014 Platinum, and there's more space than you actually know what to do with back there, if that makes sense. Like, you're almost comfortable because, like a lot of times, like, you feel cozy in some cars, but comfortable. There's just, like, so much space. It's like sitting in an empty room, if that makes sense. But I just did looking at the stats. The legroom on a 2014 Tundra rear seat is only 0.6 inches shorter than the legroom on an Audi A8L.
I don't find that that shocking, though, because every pickup I've ever been in, like the crew cab ones, always do seem to have very spacious back seats. Like, I'm not ashamed to admit I've slept in the back of a Dodge Ram before, and
I've slept in the back of the Tundra.
I mean,
it's interesting that you say Toyota's got the lease room. My tallest friend owns a SW20 MR2.
See, I think it's something. I think this is a recent thing that Toyota's had the issue with, though, with all this crash safety stuff in it, because it's not something like older Toyotas. I have never had the pleasure of sitting in an MR2, but like old Camrys, old, Corollas, stuff like that, I seem to be okay with. But the new stuff, I don't seem to. I'm sure I would fit in a new Camry, but like the Corollas, I never seem to fit well into. What was the little one they had, the CRZ knockoff thing? I didn't fit into that. The what was that crappy kind of? It was trying really hard to be old SUV. I'm spacing on the name right now. That's gonna kill me. The Land Cruiser. They had like that knockoff.
Oh, the FJ40.
Yeah, that's
FJ40.
it. Yeah,
see, that's a good example of where even us short people start to have problems because I had a boss that had an FJ40, and first of all, that's a really cool car. I like them a lot, but it didn't, his, either they didn't have it at all or his was modified and he didn't have like a side step. So getting into that car was not easy for me.
Wait, are you talking about the Toyota FJ? Because the FJ40 is like the Jeep-looking thing from the 1970s.
No, it's the FJ. I know what you're talking about. It's the
FJ Cruiser.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what
the mid-2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
FJ40 is different. much different.
See, this is what happens when you start doing way too much chassis code shit. It starts getting confusing. We're just going to get that out of the way right now. No, the FJ Cruiser, no, I don't fit into that, and I don't think anyone over 6 foot would fit into it. And it seemed really cheap on the inside, too, which was really disappointing. So, because I wanted to love that car, and I just couldn't. So, I don't know. Like, it's the opposite problem of, hot dog down the hallway. I don't know what that is, but it's the opposite of that. Yeah. Kind of.
One of the problems that I've noted, my car's got the option for the easy entry exit where it backs the seat up for you to get in and out. And I turned it on once, and then I immediately had to turn it off because I couldn't start the car without moving the seat myself. Because I couldn't push the clutch far enough in to trigger the switch.
I have to ask, I have to get my car valet parked a lot because I work in and around the district, so there's not a lot of parking on a lot of East Coast cities. There is nothing more maddening to me than having to go out and get into my car, and you just have that muscle memory of, like, I'm just going to sit down in it, and either the seat's way too far forward or way too far back, and without, like, because I've owned Volvos up to this point, for the most part, so there's always that, like, setting to bring you back just to perfect. You don't get that with the Fiesta ST because it's all manual seats, so I always feel like the car's not right where I need it to be for, like, another week or so. It feels like someone else has, like, defiled it, which is disturbing.
Yeah, I've always hated that. And even though I've got power for the forward and back and memory, the seat back itself is manual. And I don't normally have people drive the car, so it's not that much of an issue for me. But I went to a drive-in movie last week, and so I moved my seat myself to get comfortable to watch the movie. And then it took me like 3 days of fiddling to get it right. And even now I'm like driving down the road going, is this really where I want the seat to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but a blowjob was worth it. I mean, come on. That's what drive-in movies are for, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What was the fellow's name?
Hard-mounted race seats are the solution, people.
I thought about that. With the Volvo 740, the driver's seat doesn't adjust. It's locked into place because it's been brought over from the Porsche. So the bottom doesn't move, and to get the top to move forward and back is such a pain in the ass. No one ever messes with it. So I'm hoping that puts a fix to it.
What's really fun with race seats and racing harnesses, I co-drove a friend's ridiculous Miata at autocross, and he basically was my pit crew. And there is something special about the experience of strapping in with the assistance of a crew and then being like, well, I can't move anymore, guys, so I'm going to need you to do everything.
I don't know, it's so weird to have someone touch your shit. I don't know. It's off-putting. Have you ever...
I think that's true for anything, though. I mean, besides just a car, like, I know I've gotten mad at my girlfriend for putting something away where I didn't expect it to be and not being able to find it. And just like little stuff like that, you have your system, and anytime somebody makes you deviate from your system is rough, and your car is like a piece of you. So for that to be deviated is just like 1,000 times worse.
Yeah, I mean, it is an extension of our personalities, and it's almost like someone's removed and messed with a part of your body. Like, you wake up and there's just writing in blood on your mirror of, like, welcome to the wonderful world of your seat pulled too far forward, like that sort of shit. Like, kidneys are gone, you got like a blood transplant that you didn't want. Like, it's just awful. I don't know. I don't know where you go from getting your kidney stolen and getting AIDS from that. I guess that's probably the worst thing that could happen to you in terms of vehicle. I don't know, is seat too far forward better or worse than seat too far back?
Worse.
Definitely worse. You can't even get in.
You can't get in, yeah.
Have you ever gotten out?
So,
yeah, go on.
well, so my fiance is 5'2", and I'm like 5'11" to 6 foot, depending on how tall I'm actually deciding to stand on the day. And the part is, I get into her car, and the seat moves forward when I put the key in, and next thing I know, I am in the steering wheel. Like the steering wheel and I are one thing, because she's so short and it automatically moves, and I'm going, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, stop, and it won't stop.
I've got a similar thing. My mom has an Audi, and she's shorter than I am, and she also just likes to sit like hugging the steering wheel. So I'll get in the car and it starts moving, and I have to quickly move my leg out of the way so it doesn't get crushed against the steering wheel.
The other worst thing too is with the key that remembers shit, with having valet people drive the car a lot, is eventually gets used to the valet people if I have to go to a particular spot every day. So I've had it before where I get the key and I get into the car, put it into the ignition and turn it, and the key decides, oh, the last like 5 times this thing's been started, they moved the seat super far forward. So you put the key in, you start it, and it just starts creeping on you, and you can't figure out why it's doing it. And that's like, it feels like I'm stuck in a terrible Indiana Jones movie remake, like some sort of booby trap. Like, where am I going to step? And like, I need to like spell out Job before I can fucking, get the car seat to go back. Let me see here. No, he's not in yet. I need to stop doing 8 things at once. So, yeah, I don't know. So, what is kind of the automotive pet peeve of, I don't know, driving that we have going on? I know there's a lot of people who hate left lane hogs. Do we all think that's the worst thing, or does someone have something that's worse than that?
I think the worst thing
to merge. It's the simplest thing to do, and people just fail.
That's a good one, especially though my counter to that would be people that don't understand they're getting on a freeway and they're doing 35 even as they merge in, and now you're stuck behind them. My biggest pet peeve, or my worse than a left lane hog, are people that try to be nice and not obey the law.
Yeah.
Like, you're at a stop sign and somebody has the right of way and they're waving you on and saying, go, go, go. No, you have the right of way. Take it. You're not helping me.
It's the people who are polite for no good reason, and I also enjoy the people who take advantage when you're doing the right thing to them, like you're coming up to a zipper merge, you let them in, and then they proceed to allow like 80 cars from the right lane in ahead of you into zipper merge.
I'm just not nice, so I don't allow them to do that.
Especially
if they're doing the whole, like, it's a long line of cars and they're just going to ignore all of the lines on the road and try to cut in at the last second.
Yeah.
I have one that's kind of particular to me, near my parents' shop. Some other people might have this. So the road is one lane, and it splits into 2 right as it gets into a main intersection, and both lanes are left turn lanes. But in order to turn right, you have to go in the right lane. So there's only 2 lines, if that makes sense. But you can turn left from both lanes or right from the right lane. Well, people will literally go into the right side lane to make a left and then stop there. And I can't make a legal right on a red light because they're sitting there waiting to make a left. Or even if if there's like a line of people, if there's like 2 people, just to be first in line on the right side, or just to be first in line to make a left, they'll go in the right lane, and then I get stuck right behind them waiting to make a right to turn onto this road. And I was not happy with someone yesterday because they were the only person at this light, and they were in the right lane to make a left. And I'm like, you are an idiot, and you don't deserve to drive.
What if they're turning into a 2-lane road and they want to be on the outside lane for a turn coming up?
There's not one right there.
Yeah, I have a very similar problem. There's a shopping center that has a very similar turn at it, and it pisses me off to no end when that happens, because I don't mind it if there's a huge lane of like cars in the left turn lane and there's like 4 or 5 cars ahead of me when I'm getting into that right lane who are also going to turn left. What irritates me most is just that guy who decides, no, I'm going to get into this right lane and I'm going to make the left because fuck everyone else, because that's how I operate. Because I think that's what they think is, you know, I'm the only person who has to be somewhere on time, so I'm just going to get into this lane and everyone's going to work on my time frame. So,
I think I've just become very passive about. I don't get really irritated by people on the road as much as I used to. I think I don't know why, but usually it's just like disbelief. I almost find it funny when somebody does something that's just so stupid or makes no sense, and I do the whole lift my arms up with a questioning gesture and hope that they can see it in the mirror, but I don't get angry. What did make me angry the other day, and I think is a sign that I'm getting older, I pulled up to a light and I want to say she was between the age of 18 and 21-year-old girl with 2 small children in the back seat, both sitting in booster seats. As she pulled up to the light, she was staring at her phone, didn't look away from the phone the whole time the light was red. Light turned green, and she didn't know that it had turned green. And I came real close to lowering my window and just yelling at her and being like, "You're a disgusting person. You've got children in the back seat, and you're texting while driving."
Yeah. No, I had a couple weeks ago, I was walking through DC, and I saw a person with a kid not belted in, probably from the looks of them, I would say they were probably visiting from some foreign country, but they had no child seat. And it's like, that just seems like the most dangerous thing on the planet is to not have a kid belted in, buckled up properly in the back seat of a car, especially in the district, which has fender benders all the time because everyone's not from here and everyone crashes all the fucking time. Like that irritates me way more, I think, than anything on a,
Yeah. So what would you say about, like, a dog?
I always belt in dogs. I'm the person I got, like, a fancy harness. I put them in the back of the vehicle. I hook them up properly, and I put them on, like, a retention lead, so if we get into an accident, like, they are just as safe as everyone else. So,
yeah.
Am I a crazy person for that? Maybe. But
I don't think so. I think it's responsible. It's weird that it can seem like you're crazy for doing what is arguably the right thing. I always get a little nervous when I'm driving with, I don't have a dog, I have a cat. She's in her carrier, but there's not really any way for me to belt the carrier in. But I know that when she's in the car, I'm driving much more carefully because I'm trying to avoid getting in a situation where she would get hurt.
yeah.
Well, you also don't want a cat or dog-sized projectile hurting you.
This is
Yeah,
true.
I have Gibson one of those it's like a hammock basically that goes between the back seat and protects my seat first of all, and then it comes up behind the driver, and that's pretty good right there, because I've had to make a few stops, and usually he's laying down and he'll basically just kind of fall into the area of the footwell. He'll just kind of slide down into it, but other than that it seems to work pretty well for him.
I mean, again, I'm trying to do 3 things at once. Again, I apologize, everyone listening, everyone here. I don't know, because I do think, since we're a bit on this topic of conversation, I see speeding all the time. I see people kind of driving well above the speed limit, and I never think that they're really acting all that dangerously. It's when I see someone doing something dumb in a car where they're not paying attention. That's what, I'm like, oh, that person's dumb, or, texting, or I see it all the time, like around here, you have people who they're sitting in the driver's seat, they have the dog in their lap, and like the dog is basically on the airbag or obstructing their vision. That's when I'm like, oh, that person doesn't know what the hell they're doing. And that irritates me way more than getting blown up or blown by some idiot in a 91 Civic driving at 95 miles per hour, because I go, that guy is at least, probably paying attention to what he's doing. So, is that a bad wiring, or is that everyone?
I would agree with that, because I think a lot of it is you see people kind of disrespecting the responsibility of being behind the wheel of the car. And while speeding is arguably on that side of it, it's not as bad as not focusing or putting yourself into a situation where you're not necessarily capable of controlling said machine. I've gotten into arguments with people where they'll be playing with their phone at a light and they'll say, well, I'm at a light. I'm like, doesn't matter. You're still driving a car. You need to focus.
Yeah, I think that's a gray area because if you got to do something on the phone, the light's the time to do it, but you got to be quick. It's still the same rule of if you're driving.
It's better.
Yeah.
It's certainly better than doing it while you're moving, but I still would argue that it's not a good idea.
Yeah, but then again, you're talking to the guy who eats all sorts of weird, crazy food in a car, so probably.
Well, eating is a whole different story. I do that, so therefore it's okay.
Oh, okay. I'm glad this is what we decided that comes down to. If we do it, it's okay. If everyone else does it, they're dumbasses. That's pretty much how that works?
I'm smart, and I like cars, and I know how to drive them, so I'm okay.
Well, what does everyone else think? Are we of the opinion that the speeder is better than the texter?
Yes.
Yes.
1,000%.
All right. Now here's another one for you. So I know we have a couple people from different parts of the country here. So has anyone experienced Uber driver with a tablet seen this in their car? I haven't taken an Uber, thank God, but I've seen an Uber driver with the tablet up blocking probably 50% of their vision while they're driving around. Is that a purely DC thing, East Coast thing, or is that just countrywide now?
Can't say I've seen that yet here. I'm up in Allentown, PA.
I think I saw that in DC.
Probably the same guy.
I haven't seen that, but yesterday I saw a Chevy Spark with an Uber and a Lyft sticker on them, and my immediate thought was, if you pick me up with a Lyft in a Spark, you're a jerk. You're not a good person.
Yeah. Did we get Jeff in? Jeff, are you there? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic. Awaiting the dreaded nor'easter that's heading right in my direction.
Yeah. So we got PA. I'm in DC. Where are you at, Jeff?
Allentown.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we're all kind of in the. I think the only one.
Area.
Yeah, I think the only
I'm
one.
in Colorado.
Yeah.
Oh, Colorado's out there.
Tennessee.
Tennessee's pretty far out there too.
Mm-hmm. Did you all get snow in Tennessee today? Because it would have been today, I think, if you're getting to.
It was yesterday morning, and it came around. Let's see, 8 o'clock. We got about 2.5 inches. It was gone by 1, and I saw a Acura NSX at 3 and a DB11 at 3:30. So it came and went very, very quickly.
Sure, rub it in.
Yeah.
Well, if it makes you feel any worse, I was driving a E550 Cabriolet, and I wanted the top down, but it was just a little bit too cold, and the fiance said no.
Oh, that's when you say, "Woman, this is my car. You got to understand these rules. We're getting married, so you love it or leave it." Yeah. Well, touche then. Thanks, mother-in-law, for letting me drive it. And then
yeah. It's quite quick, actually.
I bet it is.
If you don't believe that, I think it's a twin turbo V8. If you don't think a twin turbo V8 is fast, they are.
Yeah. I don't think anyone ever has looked at a twin turbo V8 and gone, "No, that's probably not fast, right?"
Somebody's gonna ream me for saying the 550 is a turbo, for saying it's a twin turbo when it's not, or something.
Mm-hmm. What is it? Probably like a dual impeller or some bullshit hybrid turbo thing. I don't know. We don't want to get into engine codes and all that technical talk on the show. You know, it gets a little overwhelming for me after a while. You know, I know Jacob is just planning on engine codes over there. I can feel it.
I get so lost in that stuff.
The Germans call it a biturbo. So one's probably bigger than the other.
Is it really 2 turbos, or is that just German for twin scroll? That's an honest question. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are actually twin turbo.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're kind of like the BMW. I don't know if this one actually is. It might just be the the 4 liter or 4.6, whatever they want to call it.
4.7. I'm looking at the website right now. I kind of want to know.
It doesn't say turbo though. It might not be a turbo.
Bi-turbo.
Mm-hmm.
It is bi-turbo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Assuming it's a
bi-turbo
2017, I guess. If it
No,
was
it's a 2014, but yeah, it says Mercedes updated its V8 E550 sedan, but the V8 died. Let's see. Maybe it might not be.
It's an M278.
Yes, numbers.
Yeah,
Someone said explodes.
Yeah, I'm just lost right now.
I'm just going off what Wiki says.
Well,
there we go. It's a 4.7 liter twin turbo V8, making 402 horsepower.
That's not bad.
Oh, yeah, I guess each turbo is for each bank. So, yeah, it's a twin turbo.
Seems like a lot to just get 402 horsepower.
It does.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, what is a Dodge Challenger Hellcat? That's 707, and that's just a supercharger on a V8. I mean, come on now.
But it's a much
Granted,
bigger
that V8's like
engine.
1 million liters.
Yeah. But like the 5.0, the Mustang engine, the 5.0 Coyote is, what, 435 horsepower and it's 5.0 liters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally aspirated.
Yeah.
The nice thing about this one is it's the AMG package on it, so it's got the bigger brakes, but also means it has a little bit rougher ride, which is good and bad for the cabriolet. I have to drive it a little bit more to kind of figure out.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell her it's for testing purposes.
Yeah.
I think ride is totally dependent on like I think you only notice a rougher ride if you've come from something softer.
Well,
like,
I got out of my Lexus LS 400 and got into the Mercedes E-Class convertible.
My summer tires are on an inch bigger wheels and run on skinnier rubber and stiffer rubber.
Yeah,
and
you can definitely feel
the
that.
The first day that I put on the summer, it's like, oh my goodness, this is the worst riding car I've ever been in. But now it's been 2 weeks and I don't notice it as much.
Or you could also live in a place where you don't need snow tires. You don't have to feel that way.
Well, you can't all have everything.
Mm-hmm. If some of us didn't choose to live there.
Diego.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or Tennessee. Or
Tennessee, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you might die from the humidity here.
You haven't been to this part of the country. It's pretty bad over here, too. But we get snow, too, which makes it extra worse. It's like the worst of everything here. Yeah, Maryland's basically hell on earth.
Yeah, but it's not Kansas, so you don't get earthquakes, too. On top of all of that.
Well, we're waiting for an earthquake
tornadoes
here. So, actually, this is car related. So we were looking at Tennessee, where I came from in Tennessee, or where I live in Tennessee, had a tornado 2 weeks ago, and we were kind of looking at some of the damage. And most people have already cleaned up the trees, but in the house my fiance used to live in, there's 4 or 5 houses right at the end of this cul-de-sac that all had tarps on the roof from this tornado. Well, we're like, okay, well, let's go get a better picture. And we go down to the Lexus dealer. And the Lexus dealer, I'd heard, had multiple windows blown out. And I'd forgotten about the cars. And we go down there, and probably every 2 or 3 cars is a little piece of blue painter's tape on the headlight. And we go to the back lot. There was an RC with its roof smashed in.
Ooh.
Wow.
A brand new RC 350 F Sport roof was smashed in. There was a NC. The entire back looked like a shrub had just flown right into it because it wasn't like dented or anything, but it was just scratched as just through the clear coat, through the everything, down the metal, just scratches all over. And then I saw a brand new LS with the blue tape on it. There was a GS that had its rear window smashed in. They lost a lot of money in cars right there. It was a good insurance claim.
Yeah, I always wonder if they give those cars up at auction or if the dealership tries to repair them.
We were talking about that. We weren't quite sure. It's like, how do you sell a new car with a salvage title?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't titled in the first place, right?
Yeah,
So, I'm pretty sure that they can get fixed up and sold. I mean,
Yeah, it wouldn't be totaled anyway unless it did a whole lot of damage.
Yeah,
I think if
that's
they
very
take
true.
the big insurance payout, and then they put a big sign up, and you get a hail and dent damage sale, and they make twice as much money on the car sold.
Yeah, we have those fairly often.
Yeah, especially if it's just scratch and dent. It's not that big of a deal. Flood damage is one thing, but just some cosmetic, it's not that bad for a brand new vehicle that's never been titled.
Well, and then the other thing is Nashville's kind of waiting for that big earthquake from the fault in Memphis, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah,
We've had a
time that
few
one went
here.
off the,
Earthquakes are weird, man.
Yeah,
They are
The last
an
time-
experience.
the last time that fault in Memphis went off, the Mississippi River flowed backwards for 3 days and created Reelfoot Lake. The only natural lake in Tennessee was created by an earthquake.
It's a little. I have on my bucket list. I've been through several blizzards. I've been through an earthquake now. I've been through a couple floods. I've been through a sandstorm. I'm trying to figure out what other. I've been through a couple hurricanes, tornadoes. I'm trying to figure out what other natural disasters I need to get through to just like check them all off the list. I think I need a firestorm and a tsunami. Yeah. So, although I don't.
So don't be near you. Got it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I live right near the bay too, so this might be an issue because the tsunami thing. When I used to live like on the bay, I used to walk the dogs at night. And I would like get out, and I could see like the Port of Baltimore from where I was, and I could see out like towards the bridges. And I just looked at the water and went, "It's just coming for me. I just know it's coming for me." Because I come from the Midwest, and I don't trust water at all. Like water is the enemy. Like give me a car.
Water is not meant to be trusted.
No, the ocean's killed more people than land ever has. That's all I'm saying.
What? Yeah. And it's the perfect conundrum. You need water to live, and yet it will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the real enemy is because you need like 1,000 horsepower to go even slow on water. So that's the problem.
That has a lot more to do with how much friction you get on water, as opposed to just rolling on a road.
Not to get super geeky aero engineer here, but there is a thing called cavitation, and the Russians have built in the past a torpedo that essentially went so fast that it boiled the water in front of it, so it was traveling in like a pocket of air, and it was like, I think it was a few hundred miles per hour of speed underwater. Really
Sounds
cool.
legit.
I don't remember what it was like called, but look up
The
cavitation.
Russians have the
I've
most fun stuff.
Well, listen, the takeaway from that is that the Cold War ended up building a lot of really cool stuff.
Like the chronojets or whatever they're called.
The chronoplans, yeah.
Yeah, that.
Those are interesting.
Wing and ground effect, or whatever the hell that thing is. So.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's all I know. That is as technical as I get when it comes to airplane shit. Like,
They're called wigs.
Yep. It's. I just don't trust water. Is there a boating enthusiast here, or are we all sane people? That means we're all sane people.
Like sailboats.
I like.
Yep.
I really like boats. I want a boat.
Sane people.
Mm-hmm. I don't.
I like really big boats, like ships, but that's a little bit out of the purview of a private citizen, you know.
I have an appreciation of anything that moves. My uncle has a little boat that I went out on once, and I could get behind that. It was pretty fun.
I just, maybe this is just the Midwesterner in me here, but it's just I get out on the water and I'm a good swimmer. I just like the water can kill you, shit in the water can kill you, and I don't know what you're supposed to do to have fun out there besides just get drunk off your ass, which then means you're going to fall in the water and then something's going to kill you.
I can see that.
Yeah, that's just me. Yeah. And I think yeah. I mean, I kind of like what Mike Finnegan does, the drag boat racing. That just seems plain crazy to me, which is why I kind of like it.
That's a much faster way to die on water.
Yeah. Listen, yeah. I just don't want to see it coming. It's pretty much what it comes down to. I just don't want to suffer. Like,
well, just blindfold yourself.
This is a good point, but then I still feel like I could feel it coming. I don't know. If I'm going to, die on water, I just want the front of my face to go through the back of my face before, like, a signal can get sent to something. Just like that seems like the perfect way to go. Like, just me? This went to a really dark place all of a sudden. I didn't mean for it. Getting back to maybe something a little bit more lighthearted. Jeff, you missed this part of the podcast. We were asking people kind of what their strangest Craigslist story is, whether it's selling something, buying something, something sent on the email. Maybe someone showed up on purpose to your house, bought 4 tires, and had mismatched wheels.
Strangest Craigslist. I've only sold a few things on Craigslist, mostly just like old computer printers and things of that sort. I don't usually sell cars on Craigslist. However, I did sell my 93 Taurus SHO to a fellow in Wind Gap, I think it was last year. And technically I didn't sell it on Craigslist. My cousin posted on a forum, and this guy responded. He lived in Wind Gap, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm interested." So we met him there. And mind you, the car barely ran at this point, and I couldn't figure out what the hell was wrong with it. So I was pretty much just looking to get rid of it, and I sold it to him for, I think, like $300. And then a couple months after that, I saw that very car on Craigslist and thought to myself, well, he probably wasn't able to figure out what was wrong with it, and he's selling it. So it went off Craigslist, and then it came back on Craigslist a month after that. And then it went back off again, and then I saw it for sale by yet a different person on a different lot a few months after that. And eventually, I finally got hold of the fellow who sold it to the fellow who sold it to the other fellow, who finally sold it to someone who actually figured out what was wrong with it and got it running. So I thought that was a very interesting course of events, watching it flip hands so many times until somebody could finally fix it. And what was really funny is that each time the selling price, the asking price, went up by like $400, despite the fact that the car still didn't run right.
Because they kept pouring more and more money into it, probably.
Quite possibly. But I mean, it turns out that the car needed not only a new ignition control module, but also I think it was a cam position sensor. It needed both of them to run right. It was bizarre because I tried replacing both of them separately, and it didn't work. I needed both of them. It's so annoying, but I'm just glad that somebody has it now and they're taking care of it, and the car's on the road again.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of someone who apparently listens to the show got a hold of me and said that they bought the car that used to be the V70R that was a giant pain in my ass that I blew a couple head gaskets in, and they did an engine swap on it, and now it's working fine. And I'm hoping they stay in touch, because if they ever sell that car, it's the car I brought I do want it back, because it's the car I brought my daughter home from the hospital, and so I think it'd be awesome to have that car back. Like it holds, for as brief of a period of time as I owned it, it does hold that bit of sentimental value to it. So I don't know. I always kind of like the idea of, like, I would love to have all the cars I've ever owned back at some point, but that's just because I'm a crazy son of a bitch.
If I had the room for it, I would agree with you.
Yeah. That's like, I always save the VIN number of every car I've ever owned, just in case I ever, like, strike it rich in the lottery. I'm buying them all back if they still exist. So am I doing...
That's the main problem, is if they still exist.
Yeah. Well, I could see
ruined
this...
by the next owners.
Yeah.
You thought the moved chair by the valet was bad. The next owner.
At that point, though, it almost becomes like a rescue of, like, the vehicle, though. Like it's been abused. Some mean man's put some terrible rims on it and put some, like, Pep Boy tires at generic, like, $25 onto it, and put some, like, truck nuts onto it, even though it's a Saturn. So you have to take it back. You have to rescue it, I play around with this idea of, like, this is how I'm going to get rich, is I'm going to start a automotive rescue society, and we're just going to rescue nice cars from terrible owners. So
sounds legit.
Yeah.
I don't find myself getting that attached to any of my cars. I think it may just be that I tend to buy new, or newer at least. So, like, it's not like anything I own is hard to come by.
It's not so much a matter of whether it's hard to come by, it's whether you form a connection to that specific car for whatever reason. And
even if I form a connection, it's still a machine.
Yeah, but people rely on machines all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a machine. Get out! Get out!
And I don't think there's anything wrong with forming a connection to a machine.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's something wrong with it. I guess I don't have that gene or that wiring in my brain that
You
I
have
sell a
no
car
machine
and
empathy.
I go, oh, I hope someday I'll be able to get that car that I own back. Like, I would maybe say, oh, I once owned a car that I liked. Someday I'd like to get another one. But I don't think it would have to be that specific car. And I think a lot of that would be, knowing that other people had owned it. It's not really my car anymore, unless it was somebody bought it and put it in a hermetically sealed container and didn't drive it at all and preserved my legacy, which would be really creepy, and I don't think I'd want to meet that person.
Consider yourself lucky if you don't form attachments to cars, because I'll tell you what, that's a major problem, especially when you don't have enough parking space.
Yeah.
And I've been to junkyards, and I'll come across I think it was a couple of years ago. I was looking for a set of wheels for an E34 BMW that I have, and I came across this E28 with this pretty decent set of wheels on it, and I couldn't figure out why it was at the junkyard. Like the frame and the body was straight, there were no dents, the car was complete, there was nothing missing on it, and I just thought to myself, oh, this poor car, it's going to get stripped and then crushed. And I just couldn't get past it. I kept coming back to it and looking at it, wondering what its future was going to be.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the worst experiences I've ever had to go through in terms of like the emotional attachment with a vehicle. The Porsche I got, the little 924 I got for free, that was just kind of occupying garage space as I was trying to find a new owner for it. There became a certain point where the wife just got fed up with it and basically said it's either her or the car, and it's like, well, I don't need the car, it doesn't make any logical sense to keep it around. So I basically had to get the thing demolished, and it was so hard because I had to do it by my own hand because I wanted to save some parts from it. I never felt quite as dirty or as guilty as I did taking apart that car. It could have found a new owner, maybe, if I could have kept it for a couple of years and, found the right place, but it made no sense to keep it, and the logical side of me knew that, but the emotional side has grown an attachment to this cute little car that had spent so much life in PA unloved, and now I had to, bring its life to an end, hopefully in a humane way, as humane as you can do to an old piece of crap Porsche. But I don't know, that I find myself getting emotionally attached to vehicles fairly easy. Hell, I named the Roomba. His name is Charlie.
Oh, don't get me started on Roombas. I can't fathom owning one. It would claw at me, especially when it gets stuck and it makes that weird moaning noise.
Like you would want to rescue it? Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't. I just couldn't deal with that. It would freak me out.
So I've got it's not a Roomba, but it's called an iLife. It's like a knockoff Roomba. So I've got a 75-pound Greyhound, and he sheds like nothing I've ever seen in my life. And I live in a college dorm with two other guys, so it's constantly people going in and out. We try to keep the place as nice as possible, as clean as possible, but it's just always something going in and out. But that Roomba, I just go to class, I'll start it, I leave, I come back, the floor is nice, it's parked again, and it's like, I love this little thing. They are so great. Because otherwise, I'm sweeping every day. But that means I don't have to sweep every day. I can just turn it on, go to class, come back, and it's clean.
Did you name him?
Kind of.
What is the kind of name?
So if you watch South Park, we called it Mr. Slave because it's a slave to us.
Yeah.
But it's not like, it's like just it's champagne colored. We're like, that's about the whitest thing ever, so we're going to call it Mr. Slave.
Have you thought about putting googly eyes on it?
No, but that is a fantastic idea.
As a Roomba owner who has googly eyes on the Roomba, 100% best thing you can do. Oh yes, okay. 100%. It is fantastic. It really adds to the whole motif.
I'm going to buy some.
You can also. Does anyone else have a Roomba or iRobot or whatever? If so,
I know.
If you can get two in the room with each other, this is super dangerous, but it's also super fun. You attach a balloon on one end, and you attach a knife on the other, and you let them battle royale. So
that sounds incredibly entertaining and also incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, no, it is. It is both. I guess if there was a lawyer, I guess I'm channeling Steve here. I don't recommend this. Do not try this at home, but it is kind of hilarious. Just watch out for your, ankles, because you can end up, dead on the floor by a Roomba, which is not an obituary you want to have. So, just saying.
There's been worse.
Yeah, I guess there has, but you don't want to be in that pantheon of stupid deaths. I'd rather go out into sea than by a Roomba stabbing. So.
It'd certainly make for an interesting obituary.
Just be in your toes?
They're it puts you right at Achilles tendon level. It'll get you right there on the back of it. But you don't want that. We managed to get off of automotive topics somehow. Possible.
Also, the balloons can be very dangerous.
Well, helium, man, is a scarce resource. We need it. I don't know. It's since we're talking about competitive stuff here. Has anyone here gone out and done some racing? I'm talking anything from autocross and above.
I am actually the solo chair for the Wichita Region SCCA, so I do quite a bit of autocross.
Well, there you go. I always ask this whenever I hear someone's from Wichita, because whenever I pull up the stats in Wichita, like the stats for the show, Wichita is the hotbed, and I've been told it's a lot of opposite lock people are there, but I just know there's someone there who's proselytizing this show, and I need to figure out who it is. Is that you? Are you my prophet?
No, sorry.
Damn it! One day
I do know a lot of Wichita opposite lock people. All of my friends here in town that I didn't bring from other places are people I met via opposite lock, which has worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I'm very jealous. I think there's 3 of us scattered all over the D.C. metro area. I think there's more oppos in West Virginia than there is in Maryland, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, which is weird.
There's quite a few in the
what
south.
Our numbers are at.
Huh?
There's quite a few in the southeast, but every city in the southeast is exactly 2.5 hours away from each other. So if you want to travel the southeast, Memphis is 2.5 hours from Nashville, which is 2.5 hours from Knoxville, which is 2.5 hours from Asheville or Atlanta, and Chattanooga is the half point. And then Birmingham is 2.5 hours south, I know there's at least 3 or 4 people in Birmingham, and there's 3 or 4 of us in Nashville. Then there's 1 in Memphis and 1 in North Carolina. So we're just all spread out within a 9-hour area.
Yeah, but there's a very simple solution for that. You all just meet at the tail of the dragon. I mean, come on now.
See, it's actually not even that central, though. And the other problem is that they watch that very, very closely now. The cops do.
Yeah. Well, that's...
So actually, we've been talking about doing a Nashville oppo rally or a meetup, and kind of meet in Nashville and go to the Lane Motor Museum, which if you've not been there, it's fantastic. And then maybe go to Arrington Vineyards or Jack Daniel's Distillery, the backways, which are some really nice country roads, sweeping turns and no cops, and it's kind of a fun thing to do. I'm trying to figure that out still, though.
Mm. Well, here's a random topic to kind of bring us back to kind of more car-centric thing. How many of us drive a manual transmission as our daily driver? So I do. We'll just kind of do
used to.
Used to. So
I still have the car, but it's a little bit under the weather at the moment, unfortunately. But
there's a article that went up on the front page today that's kind of disturbing and involves someone basically getting, shot because they drove a manual transmission vehicle. And there's always that joke about it being an anti-theft device, but you know, I don't know. It puts a little bit more in perspective when you think about, you know, that you're driving a vehicle that someone who may want it from you can't drive. So do you think it puts you in more danger or less danger since you have a manual transmission vehicle? I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird thought.
Statistically,
I mean,
probably less danger, but that you can't go visiting the intentions of criminals. You don't know what they're going to do.
this is true. Yeah.
Yeah, I get a feeling that the guy that did that probably would have killed somebody with an automatic for just as stupid of a reason. So,
yep.
I wouldn't look into it too much.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it kind of like catches you off guard and you start thinking about it way too much, or at least my weird brain does. I don't know.
Haters gonna hate.
Yeah, I guess. It's a fun skill to have. I really enjoy driving it. Now, where I'm at, it makes zero sense to drive a manual transmission car day in and day out, which is why I kind of enjoy doing it. I don't know. Is the death of the manual, being decried too early? Like, do you think it's going to stick around for another 20 or 30 years? I mean, I can't.
In niche applications, absolutely. I don't think you're going to see a complete death of manual transmissions offered in new production cars for at least another decade or two.
Yeah. I mean, I saw I forget who posted this a while ago, but they said, what do you think the last vehicle is that's going to be sold in the United States with a manual transmission?
Mazda Miata.
That's a very good
Assuming
answer.
Mazda doesn't go under by then.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because I think the manual dies with the gasoline engine. I think that you're going to see those niche applications, the sports cars that aren't the purest sports cars that are arguably going the wrong direction, like the Alpha 4C. I mean, you have Porsche is still making manuals. They just came out with a GT3 with a manual option. The muscle and pony cars, they all still have manuals, and I don't see those going anywhere.
But Porsche is not going to be able to produce gasoline vehicles after 2030.
Right, and so it's not like you can't run an electric motor through a manual gearbox, but I don't think that automakers will.
There wouldn't be a whole lot of point to it.
Yeah.
Other than the fun. And you do get an advantage from gearing. That's how the Remach is so fast, because it's got 3 gears instead of just being direct drive.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of the homebrew stuff you see with the electric motors is run through a manual transmission. A lot of it's clutchless, though, which is weird when you look at the way they do the stuff they do, because you really don't have to worry about hurting the engine because it's an electric motor and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. It's going to be kind of a lost art, by then. You always are going to need your entry-level vehicles to show people how to drive a manual transmission. I mean, if all you have left is, the performance stuff, and even if it's a Miata, that's a fairly decent price point, but, when you start... go on.
I take issue with that a little bit. The thought that you're going to need the entry-level vehicle to teach people. And the reason is, so I work in the aviation industry, and the biggest problem that we tend to have selling airplanes is airplanes last a long time, and we've built a lot of them, a reasonably large amount of them. So you get to a point where your biggest competition is a used airplane. So in the future, if you get to a point where the only cars that have a manual transmission are sports cars, it's not like there's any reason for an automaker to make a budget manual transmission car at that point, especially because for that really, really small segment of the market that would be looking for that learning experience, they can get it from a used car because we've built millions of manual transmission cars.
Mm-hmm. Now, on that note, though, you got to think of, the aviation industry never really had the cash for clunkers thing, which took a lot of old, manual transmission cars off the road because a lot of them were hooked up behind, big V8s. So when we kind of lost a lot of good motors and a lot of good transmissions due to the cash for clunkers thing, and you can say it's a good thing or it's a bad thing, but in terms of performance enthusiast vehicles with manuals, it kind of took a large swath of those off of the marketplace. So
yeah, but it's not like you're still looking at. I think the last time I read it was something around like 5% of cars are manual transmission these days.
Yeah,
something like that, and we're just making more and more cars each year, assuming I'm remembering the statistics correctly, not that I watch them that closely. So when you're talking the 20 years from now, assuming that it doesn't decline, which as a car enthusiast, quote unquote, it seems like a lot of the attitude a couple of years ago, that famous Jeremy Clarkson piece where he said the V12 Vantage is like the last of its breed, that was just wrong. Like, everyone was just wrong about that, because we've gone basically the complete opposite direction, where cars are getting crazier and crazier, and some car makers are being a little more purist. Lambo's got the Huracan Performante or whatever is like the fastest car around the Nürburgring ever, and it's a naturally aspirated V10. So I feel like people, at least in my lifetime, it feels like we've had this moment where people thought the sports car was dead. And not that I'm a huge automotive history buff, but it seems like that's happened before, where there's been a point where there were performance cars, and then you had the oil crisis in the 70s, and you sort of had this, well, we're never going to do sports cars again. So I guess I'm just not as... I am normally a very pessimistic person, but I don't look at the automotive universe right now and think, oh man, the gas motor is going to die and the manual transmission is going to die. I think it's all going to be around for quite a bit.
Well, that sparked an interesting thought, because a lot of the young people coming out are not getting their driver's license at the rate that they used to. You're not having to take up on it. It seems to be more and more that the only people who want to drive are people who want to drive because they enjoy the experience of it. As that percentage kind of creeps up, we're going to get more and more, I guess, performance-minded vehicles. Like, if you really think about it, maybe the FRS and the BRZ or GT86, whatever they're calling it now, maybe that is going to be the vehicle that was ahead of its time, because as the take rate on driver's license decreases, the need and the want for more, performance-minded vehicles for a daily driver might increase.
Yeah, well, and I think there's probably a separate conversation that I doubt any of us would be the right people to talk about, of, the decline in driver's license take rates is because of the general trend for younger people to seek living in cities rather than suburban areas or in rural areas. So when you're in an urban center, you don't really need a car, and in fact, having a car becomes a challenge or a pain point. But eventually the cities are going to become too crowded, and you're going to have I'm sure, a movement of those younger people who sought the city. They're going to get middle-aged, late 30s, that type age. They're going to start having children, and they're going to go, oh, it'd be kind of nice to have a house with a yard, and they'll move out of the cities, and you'll see that wave start to go that way. And the attitude, and marketing departments will see that the biggest customer being what right now is middle-aged folks that were Gen Y or whatever it is, Gen X. It's going to be the millennial generation that are now the people with money, and they're going to be moving out of the city, so they'll realign to the non-urban setting, which is going to drive the next generation to seek the non-urban setting, because that's what they're being told to do.
Mm-hmm.
I am like 2 months away from having an MBA. Please excuse my marketing. All of that stuff is fresh in mind. So,
yeah, I'm 2 months away from having my degree in accounting with a collateral and supply chain, but they couldn't get me into one of the supply chain classes, so I got stuck in a marketing class, and I actually hate it. I thought I would love it, and I'm like sitting here like, oh my gosh, help me. But so it's kind of funny because I drive a Lexus LS 400. It's got 306,000 miles. I've had it for 6 years. It's my first car. I have this deep attachment to it at this point. But what's kind of happening is I got an iPhone 7, and now I feel like an idiot because I love my iPhone 7, but I can't plug it into I have to plug it into the lightning jack. And so now I'm like, okay, well, I want a Bluetooth, and I want something that handles better, and I want something that's quicker, and I'm like, well, crap, my Lexus is just not cutting it anymore. But then I go take a drive.
First world problems.
I know, right? My Lexus isn't fast enough with its 4-liter V8. But I go and take a drive tonight, and it eats up highway miles like nothing. So I'm keeping this forever. But I'm looking at my next car, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to do an accounting job. I'll be traveling 40% of the time. I'm thinking my next car is going to be an FR or an 86 with a manual, because I'm kind of on this manual kick. So I'm trying to figure out is it worth it to do this and then get stuck there and then have the fiance's RX be the only other thing? And so it's kind of interesting right now because I started with an automatic and I'm trying to get into a manual and it's not working yet. But I need to get a job first.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go with you should get a Camaro.
Nope.
No. I as much as I'd like to talk about the FRS, VRZ, whatever, I don't think it's good value for money. Maybe on the used market, but no.
I think it's tough. Go ahead. I was going to say, I think that the FRS, I was thinking about this the other day. The FRS and VRZ, when you compare it to the Miata, they're good value, but not anywhere else. And I do not understand why Toyota or Subaru won't make a FRS into a Alpha 4C. Give me a $35,000 turbocharged FRS that makes 250 horsepower, 250 pound-feet of torque.
Mm-hmm.
I'd buy it. And I drive a Mustang. I'd buy that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So my real goal is I want to get a W20 MR2, which is the second gen, the round body.
Yeah.
And then stick the 3.5 liter V6 that's in pretty much every Toyota or Lexus right now in it. You get a 300 horsepower. Once you breathe on it, you get about 300 horsepower, 280 pound torque, naturally aspirated V6 in a mid-engine car.
Mm-hmm.
With a fast path to an early grave.
I was going to say,
yes.
Lift off, oversteer. Just
yes. But it would be amazing until you died.
I drove my friends
when the Mustang owner is
SW20.
telling you to be safe, you got a problem.
I drove my friend's MR2 Turbo, and that stock motor has plenty of power. Though he's currently been in a rental for 8 months because the engine is in need of a lot of work. But it had 200-something thousand miles on the original engine, so
yeah, I mean that's the thing is because a lot of times it's the turbo that'll kind of kick you out. It's a little bit of braking, but that turbo will kick you out if you get it naturally aspirated. Oh, it would be so nice. That's just kind of my goals right there.
I actually would be really curious to drive a supercharged BRZ. I feel like just a little bit of torque would make it a much better car. Then again, the little bit of reviews I've seen of supercharged BRZs, they don't really sound like they're worth any amount of money.
I've heard that supercharged is the way to go on those because a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's turbos," but I've heard superchargers are just so nice. I know Matt Farah was saying he did a. I haven't seen it yet, but he did a one take and loved it. I thought. He said it's where it should be. A supercharged BRZ or supercharged. I think it was a BRZ. It might have been an 86 or FRS, but that's what the car should be from the factory. At 200 horsepower.
Just the price point on that thing that never made sense to me. It costs as much as a Mustang, but it's down 100 horsepower, and it's down on the torque curve.
It's so much smaller and lighter and more nimble, though. It's I think if I lived in Southern California, I would have bought an FRS or a BRZ, even for the same price. I have an EcoBoost Mustang, even for the same price as an EcoBoost Mustang, because I have good driving roads. And I'm probably not driving all that much, depending on where I'm at. You know, trying to be close to work or whatever would be my goal if I lived there. But the problem that I have at the price point is, like, the Mustang is just such a better car.
Yeah.
It's a nicer car. It's more comfortable to live with. It's more usable. It's better looking. And I really like the FRS. Like, I've driven a couple. Yeah, they need more power. The power sucks. But they're fun to drive, and they're cute little cars, and I like them. But it needs more power. God damn it. It's because it's such a good platform, and it's such an outdated power level. It's such an outdated type of power. And the Miatas somehow don't have the problem.
Well,
I don't know why.
It's because the Subaru engine doesn't give you power when you need it. It's no good off the line. You have to kind of, you know, give it the beans.
Bring it out, yeah. And then it's got that weird, like, flat spot in its torque curve that everyone talks about, which really hurts it too.
Yeah, it's. I can think of, like, because this is the conversation I had when I was looking at the car I eventually ended up in. I said, for the same price, I can get a EcoBoost Mustang, a Ford Fiesta ST, a, you know, Scion BRZ or whatever, FRS GT 86, whatever the hell, or I could go over to the dark side and get myself a Camaro. And it's like, well, went to the dealership and I got, here's a used Fiesta ST for $2,100 or $21,000. Here's a, you know, EcoBoost Mustang that's new for that price point, or a Subaru BRZ for the same price point. It's like, I'll go with the Fiesta because it's the most practical. It's got 4 doors, and I'll just get mocked relentlessly by all my peers if I don't have a V8 and a Mustang. And that's pretty much what ended up happening. It's like,
that's the only. I've had an EcoBoost for a little over a year. The worst thing about the EcoBoost Mustang is that the V8 Mustang exists, and it's not because the car would be better with it. It's just because people are really annoying about it.
Well, why don't you get the V8? $10,000. That's why, jackass.
And honestly, it's not even that anymore. Like, yeah, you get that question, and I just say because it's more expensive, and this is a better fit for me. And the thing that's really annoying about that too, not to go on a whole rant, is that people will say, I have a premium. I have an EcoBoost premium. People say, well, like, the V8's only a little bit more. Yeah, for the base model. The spec to spec is like a $6,000 or $7,000 difference, which when you're talking a $30,000 car, you know, that's 20%. That's a huge increase in price. What's worse is V8 Mustang owners disrespect EcoBoost Mustang owners more than anyone else does. And it's like, come on, guys, it's the same car.
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to talk shit to an EcoBoost owner when we're driving the exact same car?
Well, what I love is my brother owns a V8 GT from 2005 when they first redesigned it. It's like, you're aware your car gets worse gas mileage, has the same horsepower as the EcoBoost does now, but you're giving it shit because it's doing the same thing with less?
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
I had yesterday, I went go-karting with some people, and there's a guy that I autocross with, and he's got a Jeep with a Hemi, and he pulls up next to me, and he revs a couple times. He's like, at least I have a V8. And I'm go, I bet you I have more power than you do.
Yeah.
He laughed and drove away.
Well, that's the thing. The i4 Mustang is, in theory, a perfect vehicle, except for the fact that it's burdened with the Mustang badge on it. Like,
yeah, I have tried to. I really have wanted to make like an oppo post, if I could make it believable, of giving the specs of the EcoBoost Mustang and saying, "Hey, Ford's coming out with a new Fusion Coupe." Like, if the EcoBoost Mustang was a Fusion Coupe, it would be the car for opposite lot because it's perfect.
Yeah, or if it was
a little
just,
heavy.
Or if it was a shooting brake, I think we would all appreciate it a little bit more too. So.
Yeah, and the back seat. The S550 Mustang's backseat is pointless.
Yep. Good for getting a child seat in and out, though, weirdly, of all things.
Luckily, I don't have that problem.
Well, with the FRS, you guys are saying, like, the Mustang is more usable. I think that's the thing where I get points is that I will have my LS still. If I need a giant four-door sedan, that can eat up highway miles without just destroying me.
And that's a whole separate ball game at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
If you've got a car that can do the practical things, then you no longer need your purchase to be something with a practical mindset. You know, for me, it's a daily driver. I probably would have been fine in an FRS or a BRZ as a daily driver, but it's nice to have something that is more comfortable and is nicer to be in as a daily. But if I had an LS400, then it may have been a totally different situation.
Yeah. Well, I also have 8 other Toyotas available to me at almost any time. I've got because my parents have that Toyota shop, so I've got a 2014 Tundra, I've got an 05 Sequoia, I've got an RX 400H, I've got an RX 350, I've got 2 Camrys, a 1974 or 1975 FJ40, what am I missing? An ES 330, a GS 300. I've got anything I could ever need available to me as well. So it's like now it's just filling in the gaps of what I'm missing within that lineup.
Well, when you put it that way, it makes sense. But also on the flip side of that, you know, or maybe not on the flip side of that, I don't know what a used GT86 or FRS goes for. Like, where does that become reasonable money for that platform? And I'm trying to think of where it would be for me. I think if that platform was between 12 and 15, I think that would be a perfect price point for that vehicle. Like, not something too old, but not something too new. I don't know what they depreciate at, though, because they don't sell a ton of it.
I want to say they're in that range now.
The biggest thing I'm worried about in that range, though, is that they've been beat on because of the people that do buy them, are people like me who will beat them.
But it's a Subaru motor. Those are bulletproof, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any problems with ringlands or anything.
No, I've never heard anything.
That's what's so weird about the BRZ to me. It's like you've got Toyota, which is the best for having a reliable engine, and it's got a Subaru motor in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they should just put in that Camry V6 that the Lotuses get and call it a day.
The 3.5.
And take showers and all of the money they get from every car enthusiast buying that car over literally everything else.
Well, it doesn't have a turbo, so nobody's going to want it.
Mm-hmm. It kind of reminds me of Isuzu back in the day where it's like, we'll have the Americans do the engine and we'll have the Japanese do the styling. Like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, or like, we'll have the, there's some brand, I forget what it is, but they had the Italians do the electronics on it. It's like, why? Like, if it was a Japanese brand that had the Italians do the electronics, and it's like, you are crazy people. You don't have you get the Japanese to do the electronics. You get the Italians to do the styling. That's how this works. You are crazy people for doing it elsewise. So when it's like Japanese on Japanese and you have, you know, the wrong manufacturer making the engine, it kind of makes sense. But at the flip side of that, put the proper engine in it, Toyota. I mean, I don't know why they refuse to put any other engine option in either vehicle. It's maddening to me.
I'm trying to think back to when it came out, if it was such an outrageous concept, because you didn't have the EcoBoost Mustang, right? And I guess you had the STs.
You had it came out at roughly the same time the Focus ST came out, so that was like what a lot of the magazines were putting it up against.
That being said, it's been out long enough for them to remedy that.
Correct.
I guess they just don't want to.
Yeah. I guess maybe it's one of these cases where they don't sell enough to justify messing with it. So, I'm hearing someone very faint.
They did give us 5 more horsepower in the manual version recently, though.
Yeah, that was nice of them. You know, like, that probably just forgot it was supposed to come with it from the first place, though. So.
Well, the horsepower was never the problem. It's the torque. 200 horsepower is plenty. It just needs the torque to match it.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad when you go, if that car had the engine a Miata had, it would be a much better car. I mean, it just would be.
Give it a Toyota. Probably be better.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of better engine options, but when you go a Miata engine would be better. That's kind of, damning something with faint praise there.
Idea. 1UZ.
Yeah.
4 liter.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on either with that. Well, I'm looking at the time. Gentlemen, kind of went a little bit over time, so we're going to kind of cut it a little abruptly short here. I apologize for that.
That's okay.
All right. I'll offer everyone, if you want to plug something or want someone to go to a social media platform, we'll start with, I think we lost Andrew. Andrew, are you still here? No, he's not. So we'll go with Jacob, the Toyota guy.
Yeah, so I'm on Opposite Lock as Oppo's resident Toyota guy. You can follow me on Twitter. It's through Oppo. Let's see. I have an interview tomorrow, so I'm probably going to go straight to sleep. And the worst part is it's 7:30, which I was doing the math, and I'm in Central Time right now because I'm home, which is 5:30 Eastern, and then daylight savings. I was like, crap. Or it's 6:30 Eastern, and then 5:30 after daylight savings, and I'm going, oh, good Lord, what have I done? So, yeah, Oppo's resident Toyota guy, at Jake Arnheimer on Twitter, and I think that's all I've got. I started doing Twitch streams. I might do that next week. We'll see.
All right. Jayhawk Jake, anything to plug?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm Jayhawk Jake on Oppo. You can follow me on Instagram at JayhawkJake, one word, no spaces, no underscores. If you're one of those many Wichita Untitled Car Show listeners, come out to an autocross. Find us Facebook. Wichita Region SCCA, that's the best place to get updates on when we're having an event. Our first one is a week from today. Well, I don't know when this is going to be uploaded, but March 19th is our first event. And also, my friends and I have started to record a podcast, so we're not very good about getting things out on time. We're talking about a title change, so I don't know if that's going to hit anytime soon, but right now you can find us at Passion Project Podcast on iTunes. And give it a listen.
Excellent. And Jeff or Arts Jeff on Opposite Lock?
Yeah, it's ATFS Jeff.
Oh.
I don't really have a whole lot of social media going on. I just kind of joined this podcast for the funsies. So,
well, I
it
hope
was a pleasure speaking with you guys.
All right, excellent. I'm glad to have you all here. Everyone who's listening, I'll be right back with you to say goodbye off air. Everyone who I'm talking to right now, just hold on one moment and I'll get us off air. Okay. And